We're back here with College Football Forecast, and I'm very excited to, one, be reunited, and it feels so good, with Brock Vieira, the babyface assassin, my co-host, and we get to discuss, debate, and in some cases, savagely attack some programs. And obviously, the number of independents, particularly big-time independents, has gone down. When I was young, there were some sizable, important programs that were independent. Of course, BYU has been both in a conference and independent at various points. It was a WAC program for a long time. Notre Dame, of course, is the most well-known independent. It's been an independent forever. But Miami was an independent when I was first started following their program. Uh, Lots of big-time programs are still independents. Florida State was an independent when I first started following their program. Um, there were a few other big ones. And Virginia Tech's not really a big one, but they were an independent at the time when I first started following that program. Uh, there's another big program I'm forgetting. Oh, duh, Penn State. There's the other one. That's the other one. Right. Penn State was a big-time independent when I first started following that program as well. There's now fewer independents, and with the rise of the super conferences and things like that, and the ones that remain, with the exception of one, and even that one is like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're playing footsie with the conference. They're like flirting with the conference, but they don't want to go steady or go out on a date or be seen publicly with them.
Yeah, and for a lot of these teams that were independents, you're seeing why they went towards attending a conference or being a member of a conference, especially a team like Navy, which I felt was going to backfire on them. And for the most part, it has, in terms of the fact they haven't had a successful football program in a couple years. And even since they joined the conference, they've been kind of up and down, which I believe they're in the American right now. But at least it gives them some stability in terms of scheduling out your future. Notre Dame is the exception because they're such a huge program. They got their own independent TV deal that they can basically do whatever they want. And we've seen them kind of become a pseudo member of the ACC. I mean, in 2020, they were competing in an ACC championship game. They obviously had a one-off that year, but the point still stands. And then we've seen kind of them go away from the traditional team that they would usually play, Michigan being kind of a prime example, because the Big Ten has kind of gone on their own little path by the accumulation of teams like Nebraska and Maryland, and how they've kind of set this. That now they get USC, UCLA, so some of those commitments, they gotta go around the world. Obviously, there are 4 teams that remain independent in FBS football, which is obviously Notre Dame, UConn, Army, which is the kind of traditional thing for military schools, and then UMass. We're going to talk about all of them, but realistically, when you look at everything, the only team that benefits from not having a conference schedule is Notre Dame. And the reason is because they are an already established program. They've been an established program for 100 years, if not more, probably 150 more for being active. Right? They have these long-term contracts in place, and they're money generators. For UConn, for Army, for UMass, they're not money generators. And if you're Army, it doesn't matter, because no matter what, you have a football team, it's literally government funded. But for UConn and for UMass, it's going to be interesting to see, because we have something that happened to UAB about 5 or 7 years ago where they completely shut down the program. I don't know. But we're going to talk about all those things. This is just something to think about when we think about the future of independence as we enter this new era of conference realignment.
Yeah, I think the things that jump out at me when I look at this, one, as you said, how few attendants are left. And as you said, with the exception of one, they're all kind of fringy programs that, frankly, should join a conference. I mean, there's no legitimate reason for them, if they can, to join. Army has been a member of Conference USA in the past. I think either the Sun Belt, Conference USA, maybe even AAC, if they can, make that work, are places where they might want to think about, making an attachment. It's just so hard, unless you're Notre Dame. to do certain things as an independent because there's so many built-in advantages in terms of not just scheduling and travel and things like that of having a conference affiliation. But if you are trying to get a seat at the big kids table, it's easier if your conference eventually, like the AAC kind of did, plays itself into a situation where people take the conference as a whole seriously. And so is it distributive property, associative property, whichever one it was we learned about in like third grade math, when the best team in the AAC emerges, that team is now at least being discussed. If Tulane runs the table this year, or let me see who else besides Cincinnati is really good consistently. Say
Cincinnati is in the Big 12 now, so
right. So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to think who.
Yeah, I'd say Boise State runs the table this year, just because
right. Tulane, Boise State runs the table. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they'll probably be in an NY6 bowl game.
Right.
In the CFP discussion.
Right. The Mountain West at one point was one of the more respected, group of 5 programs, but they've a little bit of the luster's off, and it's not all just Boise being down a tiny bit, though that's some of it. But it's still a good conference, and I think people don't pay enough attention to them as a whole as a conference. Well, let's talk about some of the. I guess we have to start with Notre Dame almost by law. My normal sort of vituperation and my normal sort of disdain for the program had to go away to some extent when Marcus Freeman came on board. It's a home run hire to me. People who are critical of the hire or critical of his initial campaign there are, one, not realizing exactly what kind of shape the program was in when he got there. And though they'd done a good job of putting together wins, you could see, especially when they played certain programs, where the deficiencies were on that team. Besides team speed, which has been a deficiency for them recently, there were some other positions where they didn't have the same kinds of difference makers that some other programs that Notre Dame aspires to be considered in the same breath with. They haven't gotten wide receiver right in a while. They usually have a very good offensive line. They have good but not great defensive linemen. They're secondary, at least in terms of safeties. Occasionally has people that you like. They usually have at least 1 or 2 corners that are sort of nickel-ish, but their passing game is very tight end centric because they do a good job developing tight ends and just struggle to develop everything else on offense. They don't have. Well, we'll see what Sam Hartman does, but they haven't had. They've had quarterbacks who become essentially fringe prospects, as in terms of, or if they aren't fringe prospects when they first come out, they become fringe prospects when they get to the NFL. And you could see, like I said, that the progression you sometimes see from other programs where they have a quarterback who starts as a freshman or a sophomore and he's better, and then he's even better the next year. They haven't been able to do that recently. Ian Book, I guess, is the last example of a guy that you could see improve somewhat over his collegiate career. But except for him, both before and after him, guys would either stagnate or even regress at times.
Absolutely. And when you look at Notre Dame, it's pretty clear that they aspire to be Ohio State in every aspect of the game. I mean, look at who their head coach is, right? Is a literal Ohio State legend.
Yep.
The issue with Notre Dame is, when's the last time Notre Dame had a first-round quarterback? I think it was Brady Quinn.
Oh, there's no think to it. It was definitely Brady Quinn.
It was Brady Quinn, right? When was the last time they had a first-round wide receiver?
That's a better question, right? It might be even longer. No, let me think.
Notre Dame and Iowa are able to produce high-level tight ends because they can't throw outside the numbers. That's something that we don't really talk about enough. They are tight end factories because they can't do anything else. They have to control the line of scrimmage to be successful on offense. They gotta beat you at power and not finesse, and they gotta have guys that can block and be able to catch the ball and play action. You can't win a national championship doing that. Look at what we've witnessed in these past several college football playoffs. Georgia was the best team 2 years ago, and Alabama was able to beat them because they could throw the wide receivers, John Metchie, Jameson Williams. When they went out, Alabama lost. When Georgia demolished TCU, TCU couldn't throw out the numbers. You know who could? Ohio State. That's why that game went down to the literal last play of the game.
Right.
Notre Dame will forever be in this position. And now I'm with you. When Marcus Freeman got hired, a lot of my disdain for the program kind of went away. Because I'm a big Marcus Freeman guy. And I've said this line. So I recently wrote an article about Auburn and hiring Hugh Freeze, which we'll cover in our SEC episodes. Right. But I said that they had a Cadillac in Carnell Cadillac Williams, and they traded in for Fierro and Hugh Freeze. But that's not the line I said. The line I said was the reason why Cadillac Williams would never get that job is because Auburn, more importantly, Auburn's boosters, would never give a man. They would never give millions to a man with that much melanin in his body. And for a long time in the post, I think Tyrone Washington was that his name? It was an old Husky head coach. Was a head coach.
Tyrone Willingham.
Yeah. In the post Tyrone Willingham, they failed to go out and get not just a minority coach, but an innovative coach. And people are gonna say, "Oh, but Charlie Weiss was an offensive coordinator." Look at the Patriots' offense in the early 2000s. Under center, 3-step drop back, run the football. Corey Dillon had a jump in his career because of that offense. So not very innovative there. They go out and hire Brian Kelly, and they still kind of do the same things on offense. On the center, some shotgun, but they're really going to try and run the football, use the football to open up the pass. And when the pass isn't working, we're up. Poops Creek. Notre Dame's best offensive performance in the Brian Kelly era came when Everett Golston, or was it Deshaun Golston? No, Everett Golston was their starting quarterback. And obviously he had some off-field issues, which is the reason why he never went back to the university.
Yeah.
Besides that, they never really had a quarterback that could get them to the next level. Now under Marcus Freeman, they bring in Sam Hartman, who I have some major question marks about, but on paper, he is the best quarterback since Brady Quinn or maybe Golston to start for the program. Better than Tommy Reese, better than Ian Book, better than Jimmy Clausen, in my opinion. Jimmy Clausen also very overrated his collegiate career. But if you look at the way Wake Forest, Hartman's old school, ran their offense, it was a complete RPO-based offense. And the RPO wasn't a straight run-pass option. It was more of a run-draw, play-action kind of process. That clearly doesn't work against the top dogs. That's why they weren't able to beat Clemson. That's why Pitt blew them out in the ACC championship game. And you're going to look at Notre Dame's schedule, and I'm just going to read you some of the teams they got to play this year. They play Ohio State at home. They got to play at Duke, which Duke at home last year, I think, except North Carolina, they basically went undefeated the whole year at home. Mike Elko has that program in a great state. Then they got to go on the road at Louisville. They do play USC at home in October. It's a little colder, but if you got to go not point for point against USC and Caleb Williams, I don't think you can get it done. You got to play Pitt at home, they have Phil Jerkovich, so if he can get back to how it used to be, there could be another shootout there. They play at Clemson, a game I don't think that they're going to be able to win. They play Wake Forest at home, so they're going to play a team that knows Hartman's strengths and weaknesses. And then they finish off the year on the West Coast at Stanford. Now, Stanford hasn't been a top program for a long time for a variety of reasons, but they're bringing in a coach, Trey Taylor, I believe is his name, from Sacramento.
Yeah, Troy Taylor, yeah.
Troy Taylor, thank you. Sacramento State, who runs a spread offense. And if this defense is injured or banged up any type of way, I don't think they have the depth to be able to keep up with that kind of offense if Stanford can put up points. So you have some major question marks over there. You do have a really good offensive line with 3 returning starters, but I have a question marks at the running back position. Obviously, your leading receiver last year was your tight end, Michael Merrick. He's gone. You have a defensive line that's being anchored by 2 players that weren't starters last year, Jordan Botello, who I like because he's a Hawaii kid, but I have some question marks about him as a player. They also got Nana Osifo-Mansa. What is with Notre Dame and getting like the most exotic last names for pass rushers, and then you do have a really nice kind of starting linebacker trio. But outside of that, and 2 starting quarterbacks, but those quarterbacks aren't guys that are going to be top draft picks. Maybe day 3s at best. So I have a lot of concerns about this program, and I'm trying to be nice about it in this new era that I'm trying to be in, especially since our boy Greg Rector isn't here. But when I'm looking at this team across the board, I have some serious concerns, and I think that if they're lucky, they're going to win 9 games again. And unfortunately, like a lot of coaches in his position, Marcus Freeman won't get the benefit of the doubt, and I think people are going to be calling for his head sometime soon if he doesn't reach double digits.
Yeah, well, once again, the ghost of Lloyd Carr. Yeah, I know, not literally the ghost of Lloyd Carr, but when you're Bo Pelini or Lloyd Carr, whatever, one of those people goes 9-3 every year, and people eventually decide they need to move on from you. It's easy to get mad at 9-3 until when you're going 7-5. But I think that I like their chances to get to 10 games a little more than 10 wins, more than you do. But I do worry sometimes about their lack of big playability, though they have one really fast guy on offense. That's Chris Tyree, of course, the Virginia native. So they were smart enough at least to go get a guy from Virginia who can run. But their team speed as a whole does scare me a little bit, and they'll need to be very careful with the football because they're the kind of team that needs to have long drives. You have to protect that football for the long drives.
Yeah, absolutely. And the issue that I have with Notre Dame, kind of when it comes to that 10 win mark, is that there's 2 games out here that I'm kind of penciling in as automatic losses, which is at home against USC and on the road at Clemson. The issue for Freeman is that if he only lost to the big teams, he'd be okay because that's the Brian Kelly special when Kelly was at Notre Dame. The major issue is that people are calling for his head when he lost against Marshall. What if he has another one of those random losses? He's got to play Navy, which is not good, but they do play in Ireland. So we have to go across. When you're going from Indiana to Ireland, that can tax the body. Duke is not a highly respected program, but if you dive through kind of the everything, they got some talent on that team with, I think, 7 or 8 returning starters on offense. And if you lose to one of those, let's say you lose. Oh, I take that back. They also got to play Ohio State. I didn't even realize that. They got to play Ohio State. I have 3 losses already. So Ohio State, USC, and Clemson. What if he wins 8 games instead of 9? This is I think this is gonna be a major year for Marcus Freeman. Obviously, if he can pull it off, they're gonna throw a parade for him. He's gonna get a 100-year extension. But this team is not built to win, and that's just the cold hard truth of it. Look at their schedule. They won by 7 against California in 2022. They lost to Stanford. I forgot about that. They lost to Stanford last year.
Right. Well, I'm convinced they fixed that. So that's 2 wins.
Yeah. So they lost to Stanford last year. But last year they only won against Cal by 7. They only won against BYU in Vegas by 8. And then they beat Navy by 3. So last year they were ranked 41st in the country in scoring. They were ranked 97th in passing, and they were ranked 59th in total offense. Obviously, the defense has much better numbers. They were ranked 21st in total defense, but still, their turnover margin was at -3 for the season, and they were at -0.23 in turnovers for each game. Those aren't numbers that give me tremendous confidence, even though you are bringing in a better quarterback. The cracks in this team are still evident as ever, and I don't know how you can be a fan of Notre Dame and walk into this season saying that I feel confident about what we got, unless you think Joel Alt is going to blow people off the line and then get to a second level in 2 seconds every single play. There's really nothing that you can say that's like, yeah, this is a team that's going to be able to get back to the college football playoffs this year. Not with a talent that's all around the country.
Yeah, I think that, and once again, I've said some of why I said what I said. I think that Sam Hartman makes that offense better than it's looked in a long time. I think he's a really good decision maker. I think he's accurate. I think the ball comes out quite a bit, immediately. He's got a quick, easy, repeatable action in terms of his actual mechanics, above, not cannon, but above average arm strength. So I think almost having him by itself is still worth at least one win. I don't know. I feel they'll find a way to, but you could be right. We'll find out. So we were talking even off air about at the other end of the spectrum from Notre Dame is a program like UMass, where, not that long ago they were a FBS program. There's a lot that's happened, but not one of those things was becoming a great program or even a very good one at this level. I guess I'll start at the beginning. When you are looking at a program like that one or any other program where it seems to be they are consistently overmatched, week in and week out, does that change how you evaluate not just, how the program's doing, but the players that do stay? Do you look at them differently because they're staying with the sinking ship, or is that something you admire or criticize?
The thing with me is that coaches don't stay with sinking ships unless the check is worth it. They'll either take their buyout and move on to a different program or nothing else. And the shelf life for a coach is short. The shelf life for a college athlete is shorter because they only get 4 years, maybe 5 if they redshirt, 6 if they get a medical redshirt. To me, it kind of goes into the whole world of college football. Is everyone wants to call college athletes 18 to 22-year-olds selfish and entitled, but the real entitled ones are the coaches, the administrators, and the fans. No player has to commit to you. No player owes you any ounce of loyalty, especially from a system that can revoke their ways of getting education at any time. You can pull a scholarship after 1 year. It's done every single year, especially when a new head coach comes in. So I'm so sick and tired of people kind of hopping on kids for that. And I know obviously that's a little bit off to what you were talking about, but I do think that has to be said again. Absolutely BS. If a player wants to be there, that should be his own decision. If a player wants to leave, that's his own decision. And real quick story. When I am a product of the private school system. When I was exiting 8th grade, entering high school, I applied to various private schools, and I had an opportunity. And my dad always told me this, and that's something he told me when I was looking at colleges. Do you see yourself here? And do you see yourself being successful here? And that's what influenced my decision. If these players feel that they can be successful in this situation, there's a reason why they're there. If they're not, you go. And the story as far as I'm concerned. At least that's how I feel about it.
Right. So, we talked about sort of the penthouse and the outhouse. Most programs, of course, live somewhere between UMass and Notre Dame, thankfully. And there's some really interesting players that popped up with some of these rosters. So you can look backwards, some of the programs we've already talked about, or we can just move forward if there's programs there that may have some players you like.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I do that, Bill, could you do me a big favor? Could you send the link for the show to Greg? We're going to have an excellent guest, man who knows everything about Notre Dame football, Greg Rector, come on shortly. In the meantime, I'll talk about some of the players that I like in the independents. We're going to start off with the Army Black Knights. Now, obviously, we all heard the hype about Andre Carter last year, Andre Carter II. He potential first-round pick. Got to the point where the government had to make an exception for him to play football. Obviously, his draft day dreams didn't exactly go out how they like, but they do have some ballers on that team. I like Jimmy Claro, linebacker for the Army Black Knights. I think he's a surefire tackler. This is a guy that is fundamentally sound. I'm not saying he's going to get to the NFL level, but I'm saying that when you get into the trenches, when you get into those tough situations, then you need a play to be made. This guy's going to do it. Another guy I really like is Tyson Riley. This guy is built for this type of offense. He's short, he's stocky, he's got big shoulders. He's going to put his body right into you, and you're going to feel it today, tomorrow, all the way to next week. It's like a lingering pain. I mean, I'm looking at a picture of him right now. I'm scared. I've never even met this dude in my entire life. Like, I'm being honest. If I see this guy in the hole, I'm taking this shoulder and going straight for his kneecap. because that's the only way you're able to take this guy down. I'm doing a sideways tumble into his path of direction, and I'm hoping he kind of trips up eventually. But like the big stocky boy he is, he's gonna take the football, he's gonna do this, and it's gonna go rumble and bumble all the way down like he's Steve Austin in The Longest Yard. So that's another player that I'm really fond of. Another player that I really like, I think Massachusetts, UMass has two really interesting wide receiver prospects, and Mark Pope and Anthony Simpson. Anthony Simpson obviously being a transfer for Arizona. He's going to be more of a wide receiver / punt returner or returner, more than just be a straight dog on the field. But this dude, let's take a look at his numbers. He was averaging 19 yards a return against 18 kickoffs when he was at Arizona. Obviously, that was in the Pac-12. So he's going to be playing some teams where I think he's going to be able to have some of these 19-yard returns go for touchdowns. They obviously played at New Mexico State. I think that could be one. New Mexico could possibly be one. Merrimack could be one. And honestly, even though they're technically sound, I have some questions about Army on special teams. So expect this dude to make some plays and make games for Massachusetts a lot closer than they may seem in the actual game. Like, they'll look a lot closer on paper than on the game. I'm not expecting a big year out of UMass, but I do think that there's some very interesting things over there. The defensive line for Connecticut is where I'm going to kind of end things in. Obviously, when it comes to evaluating defensive line prospects, you are the king of it. Andrew Farmer, may that be the greatest example of this man's genius. I'm going to tell you right now, when Andrew Farmer takes the field in his NFL career or XFL, wherever he gets an opportunity, he's going to break out and he's going to have some great success. Love that kid's bend when he pulls on the corner. But they got 4 defensive linemen they're bringing back. Eric Watts, Diamond Goudin, Jelani Stafford, and Price Yates. I love all of them. I'm not saying that these guys will be high stack dudes, but what I'm saying is that they're going to be able to kind of collapse that pocket a lot faster than Utah teams in the past were able to. I think that's going to lead to a little more turnovers. And for a team that's borderline of 5-6 wins, all it takes is a couple turnovers to turn a season into a season in which you go to a bowl game, something we saw last year from Jim Mora. Those are some of the players that I'm really looking forward to for the Independence entry this 2023 season.
Yeah, I once again co-sign on a lot of that. I think there's a lot of underappreciated, under whatever term you want to use, and I think particularly when you're looking at some position groups, So yeah, I agree with you that those are all players I find intriguing, interesting, and fun in terms of the evaluation process. And you mentioned Army, so I guess go Army, beat Navy. I will mention Army as well. So, as has been discussed in the past, there are some positions, at least from an NFL standpoint, where you'll see very few players. They're one really successful offensive lineman in the past, 30, 40 years is a guy who was a wide receiver in college and Captain Villanueva, who spent some time in the 75th Airborne Regiment. So he's an exception, for a few different reasons. The amount of weight he put on, on that big, long frame, and say big, I think it was 212 pounds or something like that when he arrived.
Yeah, the Army doesn't like their boys to be big. They don't like them big boys.
Right. Yeah, you see very few 300-pound players. I was going to say, that's what I was leading up to, is that this is true in a lot of places, simply because it's so hard to play, if you're 320 pounds or whatever in the offense that they play, because of all the movement. You have to get out there and get to the second, sometimes even third level. And I see you've been joined by our guest, I believe. Oh, yes, we have.
Ladies and gentlemen, hold on. This gentleman is a guy I hold in tremendously high regard. This is the first show we've done in a while, even though we speak almost every day on football, basketball, life in general. He is one of the gentlemen I enjoy talking the most crud to, because he is a Cowboys fan and a Raptors fan, and for this show's purposes, a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. Welcome to the show, straight from Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Calgary.
You can say it either way.
How you doing, Greg?
Not too shabby, fellas. How are you guys?
It's a pleasure.
Good. I got the nice part about Notre Dame out of my system, so now all my further responses will be festering in hatred and anger. Looking forward to obviously talking about them with you, Greg. But obviously, you are our resident Notre Dame guy, Greg. How do you feel about the Fighting Irish entering 2023?
It's going to be the same old for the Irish, right? They're gonna get 9 or 10 wins, bottom line, and they'll just be who we are.
Yes, and that is a pretty accurate and fairly mild statement. However, you guys do get a new quarterback, which is something Notre Dame does have almost every year, but that's not the point. And Sam Hartman, obviously coming over from Wake Forest and that high passing offense. How do you feel about Hartman being your quarterback for the future?
Well, if he's healthy, it's going to be good, right? Bottom line, he has a pretty damn good protector in Mr. Alt. However, that will certainly help. The running back situation is also going to be solid. So I'm really looking to see what he can do with these receivers at Notre Dame.
Yep, absolutely. And something Bill and I talked about is, well, at least I said it, is the reason why Notre Dame always produces great tight ends is because they can't throw outside the numbers. So they kind of have to force feed it to those guys inside. Obviously,
we used to throw outside the numbers.
Yeah, you guys, I know you guys hit the DB all the time. You guys throw outside. It truly is a joy. Like watching like my niece's first steps compared to watching interceptions by Notre Dame quarterbacks is how I kind of rank it and my enjoyment. But something that you said for a long time, Greg, is that the problem with Notre Dame is that they've never been able to go out and get the quarterbacks and cornerbacks needed to compete at the highest level. Obviously, they got a quarterback. How do you feel about this new group of cornerbacks coming in for the Fighting Irish?
Well, from what I've seen that's coming this year to play corner, it looks pretty solid. They've got some pretty talented young gentlemen back there. Now, the whole issue is, can they perform at this level?
Right.
Absolutely. Now, I'm hitting my peak before I start talking trash about Notre Dame. So I'm going to throw it to you, Bill, if you got any questions.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Chris Tyree. We've talked about one of the sort of Achilles heels has been their lack of big-time playmakers who have speed. One of the reasons we talked about their passing offense running through the hands of the tight end is because their other offensive weapons in the receiving game. I mean, they often had running backs who catch the ball, but their wide receivers tended to be, might as well have been tight ends for the way that they were used. I mean, you just didn't see, 95-yard bomb to, that was not a big part of their game the last couple of years. Chris Tyree is extremely fast. The fastest player that, as far as I know, has been at Notre Dame in probably, a decade. It's been a while since I thought, oh man, that guy's crazy.
Probably.
Fast.
I think he's gonna blow the 4.35 in the 40 around there.
Somewhere around, I agree, somewhere around there. He's a guy who's sub 4.4, probably 4.33 to 4.39, somewhere in there. And I think
that's why I just stuck to the 4.35, the middle of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you, but I think he's in that range, and he's a legitimate track speed guy, which has not described, like I said, to me of their offensive weapons in the last several years. How do you think he's going to be used, and what kind of year do you think he's going to have, Greg?
Well, they've got him listed as a running back wide receiver, of course. So he's gonna be the jack of all trades. He has to be. He's gonna take. I can foresee the Notre Dame offense switching up somewhat from their normal tight end patterns that we've all gotten used to for many years now.
Right. Correct.
Since Claypool, since they had Claypool. And even with Claypool at Notre Dame, he was still playing as a tight end.
Right. Essentially, yes. Right.
Yeah.
Like a detached tight end in essence.
Yeah.
As opposed to being a true. I mean, first of all, I thought he should have been moved. Right, whatever, water under the bridge. But I would like to have seen him used differently. I guess.
Yeah. And I think with the new offense that they're looking at running with Hartman being there, they have to find guys who can do something on the outside.
Agreed. I have one more question. Well, maybe two, but I'll start with Javonte Jean-Baptiste on the other side of the ball on defense. Of course, obviously a transfer by way of the Ohio State. Tell me what your feelings are about him, and do you think he will be the guy amongst the pass rushers there?
He should be the guy as far as the pass rushing goes. He's definitely got the skill, and if he applies his capabilities, he's going to be nailing some quarterbacks for Notre Dame opponents.
Got it. And so originally that was going to be my last question, but then I realized I was lying to myself. I did have at least one more. I mean, at least let Brock back in. So the other place where speed shows up, especially when you don't have it, like it is screamingly obvious, is in your secondary, right? When you it tells you how you're going to play defense. If you lack guys who can really run, certain things are just not going to be part of your plan. So I'm going to ask about Cam Hart and I guess Thomas Harper sort of together as a package, but I'll start with Hart first. What do you think he ends up being? I mean, besides, starting corner, but I mean, do you think he could end up being one of those guys that turns himself into a, maybe not first or second, maybe a third or fourth round guy? What do you think Cam Hart's potential or ceiling is?
Well, I mean, he did pretty decently last year, but I think this year he's going to have to basically he's going to have to be a lot tougher, especially against the running game. That's one thing that he needs to improve upon is his tackling. If he does that, his coverage skills aren't bad, right?
Correct.
But his tackling left a little bit to be desired as far as I was concerned. So if he can improve that aspect, especially against the run, that's something I don't care. Nobody is Deion Sanders except for Deion, and corners who don't like to hit. It drives me bananas.
Right.
It drives me crazy.
Well, my main issue with it, I have several, but the one is wide receiver screens only exist, or at least are only called, more when it's the other team's way of saying to you, we don't think your corners are tough guys.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. If you're throwing wide receiver screens, you're sending a message to them like, oh yeah, your corners are finesse players.
That's
they
right.
Don't like contact. So here comes some wide receiver screens, and we're going to make those guys tackle. Or if you turn it down, then somebody may take it to the house.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. And the other corner, I actually, as you know, tend to always go for the other guy when we talk about draft and all that fun sort of stuff. And the other guy, I'm actually pretty excited over.
Okay. Brock, what questions might you have for Greg before you?
So obviously, this is a time of tremendous change for the University of Notre Dame. They're trying to build a foundation for a national championship program, something that has eluded them since Skip. No, yes. Wait, what? Lou Holtz. I keep mixing all the Holtzes, but since Lou Holtz was there, I think it was the last championship with Tony Rice at quarterback.
Yeah, 1988.
1988. What a year! I mean, I wasn't alive, but what a year! And in pursuit of that, they need to have some great offensive and defensive coordinators. Close your ears if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan. But your defensive coordinator is Al Golden. And then obviously your offensive coordinator, you guys have moved on from Tommy Rees as Rees went to Alabama. But, I mean, great job getting rid of him. That's already a step in the right direction. But you guys bring that guy named Gerard Parker.
Yeah.
For what you've seen, what you heard, how confident are you in these two men as your coordinator?
Well, Golden, I'm very confident in. He's got a solid resume as it is, right? So that's certainly going to help. The new offensive coordinator, Mr. Parker, that's why I said you're going to find plays to the outside. He's not going to stick to between the hash marks and a lot of tight end stuff. These receivers are going to have to get their butts down that field.
Absolutely. Does Notre Dame know what a slot receiver is?
You're hurting my feelings. What do you think Claypool and all these other guys have been? I mean,
yeah. I mean, Tyree might even see some slot reps. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a low blow. I'll admit. So let me move on to a serious question. Obviously, you have tremendous talent on that field, especially the offensive line position. Joe Alt is regarded as one of the best offensive tackle prospects you've seen in a long time, and that is
he's right now on my draft list. He's number 4 on my list.
Exactly, and rightfully so. I mean, look at this dude. I'm looking at a picture of it, and once again, like I said earlier in this episode, if it's a running play and he's coming at me, well, I hope his knees are strong because they're about to get whacked with everything I got. I'm going to, like I said, sideways tumble to his feet. Hopefully he falls over and stumbles, and then I can make a play on something if I'm lined up against him. But you guys have a great offensive line. You guys got some nice pieces all across the field, as mentioned. You guys also play a very tough schedule. Just kind of going through their entire game. They played Navy in Dublin. Easy one against Tennessee State. I mean, hopefully easy. It is Notre Dame, so who knows, right? You guys play a very underrated NC State team on the road. Central Michigan at home. Ohio State at home. That's going to be a very tough game. Loss. At Duke. Duke is a very underrated football program right now under Mike Elko. You're at Louisville, which has just got a new head coach in Brian Brom. So their cornerbacks will have to play strong because they have a tremendous passing offense. USC at home later on in the year, so you can finally get off that hump that USC won't play you guys in the cold in South Bend.
It's early. They're not coming after Thanksgiving.
October in Indiana is like 1 degree. Come on.
No, it's not.
It's pretty close.
No, it's not.
When the wind swoops in, it cuts through your skin, and it's like 35 below. If we're being
okay.
Well, and it's the middle of October, man, be honest. That Then you guys played Pittsburgh at home with your boy Phil Jurkovec, now being Pitt's quarterback. Remember how high you were on Jurkovec last year? You convinced me, and then made me look stupid when I was telling everybody else that Jurkovec was the man of the future. I blame you, and I blame you too, Bill. You guys had me sold on Jurkovec. And man,
we were only yes, but Bill and I were only discussing what he could be. We didn't say what he was.
He could be a scrub. That could have been a nice little. No, I'm just kidding though. You guys were right about what he could be. I think he will be those things at Pitt. So that could be a tough game for you guys. You guys play at Clemson, a team you guys beat last year, but this is a whole new Tigers team. Then you guys finish off against Wake Forest at home, and you're at Stanford and finish off the season. You say 9 wins. I'm looking at the schedule again. I think there's a good chance you guys could only win 7 to 8. How do you feel about the schedule? What do you know?
I love this schedule. First of all, Clemson is not that strong. They are not that strong. Ohio State will be the toughest game on that schedule, bar none.
What about USC?
USC still needs a defense.
You guys, you still need an offense. Like, did we not remember when you guys played in the Coliseum last year? I see that punter punting more times than he probably should have. You guys had to put together like a 45-play drive just to punch it into the end zone. It was a drive filled of 2-yard rush, and maybe a 3-yard on fourth down. I don't know. So if I'm being honest and not hate-filled, which is very hard for me, Greg, by the way, I think you lose to Ohio State, USC, Clemson, Stanford, and wait for it, at Duke.
No.
Yes.
No.
At Duke or at NC State, it's one of those. You got to go 1-1 against those teams.
We're going 2-0 in those games, but okay.
Really, really couldn't beat Marshall last year. You guys are gonna go, 2-0. All right. You guys couldn't beat Stanford at home last year. You guys are gonna go 2-0 on those teams. All right. And that just add that your victory in the Gator Bowl made me cry tears of happiness because I haven't seen so many Notre Dame fans so happy in the postseason in so long, and it truly is beautiful to see a team, a fan base filled with so much misery and heartbreak and disgust towards the team get to celebrate a victory so achieved through sheer will that you guys did in the Gator Bowl. But if we're being honest, you guys are winning 8 games this season. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, brother. That is the reality. Obviously, you say I'm wrong. Why do you love the schedule?
Pardon me?
No, go ahead, please.
Why do you love the schedule, Greg?
Why? Because these are schools who don't normally play against Notre Dame.
Okay.
And when you don't play against Notre Dame and you come to Notre Dame and they see Touchdown Jesus and they feel that fan base, that's a lot of issues. And even when they go on the road, Notre Dame still have their crowd with them. They will have a huge amount of people supporting them when they're at Duke, when they're at NC State, or whoever it is. Bottom line, Notre Dame is going to win 9 or 10 games. That's the bottom line. They'll lose to Ohio State. I'll guarantee that one, and they will most likely lose to USC.
So I have a follow-up question. How often does Marshall play Notre Dame?
Not very often.
Because they didn't not afraid of Touchdown Jesus when they went.
Yeah, they did well last year, but that's last year.
How often does Cincinnati play Notre Dame? Because they didn't see that scared when they went to Notre Dame in 2021 and won. Just want to. So
just keep talking about it. Keep going.
The only time I see somebody
searching now you're searching. Now you're searching for some others.
I'm not searching. I was just gonna say the only time I see someone scared of Touchdown Jesus was when Garth Brooks performed at Notre Dame Stadium because he thought that was just a really big fan. But I'm just saying, California didn't seem that scared when you guys could only beat them by 7 at home last year.
But that's last year's team. That's last year's team. Let's talk about 2023. That's what we're here to talk about.
Absolutely. No, I'm just kidding, Greg. You know I was pulling your chain about Notre Dame Fighting Irish because the Fighting Irish completely smoked my University of Hawaii Rainbow Warriors in the 2008 Hawaii Bowl so many years ago, and I'm still bitter about it. That's what being a Vieira is all about, being bitter about things till the end. And that's why I have such disdain for your beautiful and prestigious university, one of the best campuses in the nation, one of the best fan bases in the nation, one of the best stadiums in the nation. I want to show you a little bit of love. It's not all hate when it comes to Notre Dame. There is a lot of love that goes with it. But obviously, they've evolved as a program through these past 10 years. The Notre Dame I grew up on was a team that you would always see playing Big Ten competition, especially the school up north, as you referred to, or Michigan Wolverines. I said at the beginning of the show, I feel like Notre Dame now is trying to emulate Ohio State. Obviously, look at who their head coach is, even though that was a Brian Kelly hire that they promoted. You look at how they try to go about things. I think you guys are trying to be the Buckeyes. What is your projection for Notre Dame in the 5 years in general in terms of recruiting, success in the field, so on and so forth?
Well, if you look at the class that's coming this year and next year, there's many 5 stars. There's quite a few 4s as per usual. And really, he's found himself some corners, especially for next year. So if those corners And as I've said, if Notre Dame adds cornerbacks, that defense is going to be ultra, ultra tough. They'll always have their offensive linemen. The quarterback, who's coming for next year as well, he's a 5-star. They've improved on recruiting, right? And if these kids come in and do what they are supposed to, Notre Dame is going to be right back in that mix again. That school up north, we don't play again until 2033, apparently.
Which is a damn shame, man.
Well, that's gonna change because this will be the last year that they're involved with the ACC. They're going to be flipped over to affiliate with the new Big Ten with USC, UCLA coming in, etc. They can't stay playing the ACC. Bottom line. So it'll be Notre Dame and Michigan soon enough once again.
Absolutely. And something I kind of want to touch on is obviously talk about this great recruiting classes coming in. Now, for a long time, and I kind of wrapped a bunch of these schools into this, which is like the Midwest schools, which is Notre Dame, Iowa, Nebraska. Those schools, when they were great, had the ability to recruit nationwide, especially with Nebraska, when they're bringing guys like Mike Rozier, who was in like New Jersey, a bunch of linemen from Hawaii, so on and so forth. Notre Dame, at least since I've been alive, has never had an issue recruiting nationwide. They seem to bring in talent from all over the country. Why is that?
Why does that happen?
Yeah, how are they so successful at being a nationwide recruiter?
Because they are Notre Dame. This is Notre Dame. This is the school. They make movies about this school. They don't make movies at Michigan. They don't make movies about them at USC or any of these other schools. They make movies about Notre Dame. I mean, come on.
They made a movie about Marshall, but
but nobody cares. Nobody cares. I mean, come on.
That's fair. So obviously the brand has been strong forever, especially since you got the NBC network deal that puts you guys in prime time virtually every single week.
And that's going to change as well.
Yeah, of course. But with that being said, if Notre Dame continues to be the 9 to 10 win team, they have that national brand as we talked about, but they aren't able to get over the hump. How much of a rope do you think the administration is going to give not Brian Freeman? Sorry, that's my whole history. Marcus Freeman to be the head coach. How much of a rope does he have?
Oh, he has as much rope as he needs. He has as much rope as he needs. He's been given the ability to take that program where he wants to go. That's the bottom line. Now, does he have the quote-unquote freedom that Lou Holtz got, where Holtz was allowed to bring in guys whose GPA were under? No.
No.
Will it happen? It might. And if Notre Dame allows those 4 or 5 guys who are below the GPA in, that can be a huge difference.
Absolutely.
That's what got us the national title in '88.
Without doubt. I mean, you guys have had studs forever, but that team was filled with talent on both sides of the ball. Almost ridiculous to the point.
Yep.
My last question for you is obviously Notre Dame is in a great position right now in terms of coaching, players coming in, rosters they got right now. Honestly, they've been in the best position I think they've been since I've been alive and conscious and being able to watch and analyze football. The problem that I think that they're going to face is that when you get, especially with the expanded college football playoffs, when you get into things, do you think that Notre Dame is spread too thin in terms of their commitments to be able to compete and win multiple games in college football playoffs? And what I mean by that is they go on the road to California at least once a year. This year they're going to Stanford. Last year they're at USC. They'll go to USC again. They always play in the Shamrock Series. This year it was in Vegas. The year before they played in Chicago. They're traveling to Ireland this year. That's a lot of mileage that they're putting on their bodies. Do you think that that's going to be a detriment to this team headed forward as they try to compete for a national championship?
That's the other reason why I said they're going to be switching to become affiliated to the Big Ten, so their travel is cut down. They don't have to go out to the coast anymore to play those ACC teams. They can stay in the Midwest in that zone, and basically they're going to be much better off when they do that, because the trip to California every 2 years to play USC, that's no biggie, right? But like you said, the Shamrock Series back to Dublin this time. Next year, I believe it's down to Dallas for it. I believe at AT&T. So that's not too bad of a trip, really. But the visit to Ireland, that's to start the year off, so it's not going to affect them, right?
Absolutely. So I appreciate you coming on, Greg. Obviously, every time we talk Notre Dame, there's always a little bit of trash talking, but it truly is a pleasure to talk football with you, especially about the program you love so much. Bill, do you have anything left? Anything else for our guests?
I guess I have two things. One, as we both mentioned, Brock and I said before, we believe that both Brock and I have said we believe that Marcus Freeman's the right guy for the job, and I think he's going to find some ways to prove it this year. So I'll ask you where you stand on the future of that young coach. And then if there were one player on offense and one player on defense you could grab from another college team, any college team, and bring them over to Notre Dame, who would you choose, Greg?
Oh, well, I'm going to take this kid at USC to play quarterback. Yeah, I'll take that one. And if I had to take any corner that is in the SEC, any corner, I don't care. I don't care if you're the third or the fourth guy. Just come on up.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I thought you were going to pass rusher. Dallas Turner, Jared Verse. Corner.
No, we're good on the line. We're good at linebacker. We need corners. Yeah.
You guys got some big boys at linebacker. I'm very excited to see them play.
Oh yeah. This will be a pretty good draft class out of Notre Dame.
Yes, absolutely. And as Bill was saying, Marcus Freeman, your thoughts?
Like I said to you 5 minutes ago, Marcus Freeman has the freedom to do what he needs. He has already. This is his first full recruiting season, right? Because he came in late last year and all that jazz. He didn't get to do the recruiting that he wanted to. They still came out all right, but this recruiting class was very solid, and I expect that to continue. Like I said, if they get those corners that can shut down opposing wide receivers, then the linebackers and that defensive line can actually do some damage. That's been the biggest issue to me. Has been, you can get away with not having a great quarterback. You can get away with it, but you got to have a full roster on defense to do it. And they have not had it. We've had the safeties, but we haven't had the corners.
Yeah, so I mean, ask Jake Coker. I think that dude has 2 national championships because of a great defense. But sorry, Jake Coker, for the random stray, but it needed to be said. So I got one last question for you, Greg, before I wrap this up, about your beloved Notre Dame program. And as I keep talking, because I lost the question in my head, so give me a second to find it. But what was it? Never mind. If it comes back to me, it comes back to me. Greg, where can we find you online and on social media?
I'm at Greg Cowboys, just as it says on the screen on Twitter. You'll find my articles at teammbsmedia.com, where you guys also participate. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Bill, do you have anything else for our guest?
Well, two things. One, obviously, because Marcus Freeman is there, I've softened my previous stance. Obviously, I still would like to see them lose to USC, but if they manage to win 10 games, which I think it would be a stretch, it would be difficult, but if they manage, well, one, I hope it'll quiet those who have been preparing their firebrands and pitchforks for Coach Freeman, and then two, I think it might be a signal that. In addition to what he is doing in the sort of the immediate term, I'm hoping this changes the way that Notre Dame thinks about certain things, especially on offense, because I am fully willing to watch it. In fact, I'm excited about a team that decides it wants to do it differently. But sometimes different just because it's different isn't better. You want your different to be better. So I hope that they are a more diverse offense this year. Even if they don't win more games, they should be driving more diverse. But I think they will be. So it's not really a question. Okay, my question is, what transfer do you think has had the biggest impact, though?
Well, that's got to be Hartman, right? I mean, he has to be the guy. He has to move the Irish down that field. Right. It's a question of what the other young guys at receiver can do for the Irish. And that we won't know until we actually see them out there. Colsey doesn't impress me as much. Tobias Merriweather, who came out of Washington. He's 6'4", 205. He should be somebody that does some really good things. And if you want a slot receiver, that could be KK Smith.
Okay.
Who was a what was he? 71st wide receiver by Rivals. But he had 832 yards and 7 TDs as a senior in high school. I think he could end up getting some slot reps.
I mean, obviously, if they employ a slot receiver, which is never a guarantee when you consider the program we're talking about. Greg, thank you, Bill. Your question reminded me of my question. I one time said in a group chat, which Greg, you kind of liked, which is I think the word culture is the most overrated, overused BS term in college football. Culture doesn't win football games. Football players and football teams with football games having a great culture is the reason why Mario Cristobal can bounce from job to job. Not the reason why Mario Cristobal has won national titles, which he has never done as a head coach. However, there is a difference between culture and identity. And one thing that we see in college football is that Ohio State's identity has changed from Urban Meyer to Ryan Day. There's a reason why Ryan Day's best performances came with Urban Meyer's rosters, and why recruiting under Ryan Day, though still high, the players that he's brought in, they haven't been able to get it done in the big moments outside of Marvin Harrison, which is an incredible player.
Number 2 on my list.
Yeah, exactly. Notre Dame is experiencing now their own change of identity. This is kind of like the tail end of the Brian Kelly era, now the Marcus Freeman era. We're going to see some things change. Do you think that identity is going to be beneficial to the team, or will it be detrimental like how it is up in Ohio?
Yeah, that's the whole issue for Notre Dame. If they get past their cultural view, especially on offense, really the Notre Dame offense has never been that big down the field passing type offense since
Really? I swear Jimmy Clausen would throw some bombs downfield to the safety, but they would definitely be bombs.
That's what I mean. No, since the old days, as I remember them, Notre Dame has never been that real high-powered passing offense. It never has. They've always beaten you up on the ground. They always have. Now, obviously, in this more passing type of era of football. That's the reason why they need the cornerbacks on the secondary, but they need to get the better, faster receivers. They gotta pick that aspect up, and if they do that, because that line is going to ground and pound you. I don't care. The offensive line that they've got is going to ground and pound teams. I don't care how big you are up front. This Notre Dame offensive line is going to pound you. They'll run the football. Can they get that passing game going? And if they do get a passing game going with Parker's offense, they are going to win 10 games. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
And the identity that Notre Dame had was because they would pound you and pound you and pound you, right? If they add to that passing attack, that is going to bring more and more recruits to come up, including quarterbacks.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, for your sake, for Notre Dame's sake, I hope they learn the definition of the word finesse. But thank you so much for being on the show, Greg. I'm looking forward to a great college football season. Notre Dame, win, lose, or draw, are one of the most polarizing teams in all of college football. And whether it be on the show, just text each other in the group chat, I look forward to talking more ball with you. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you for joining us, Greg.
Anytime. All right.
Excellent. Great stuff.
Bill, any parting words for you, Bill?
Parting words? Semper Fidelis, I guess. Happy 4th. I guess in Canada it's less of a big deal. But we hit on, I think, all the real issues. And, speaking of hitting on things, well, you know what? No, we don't need to do a break. We can just keep plowing ahead. Were there any other players or programs you wanted to hit on before we shut this?
I think we kind of hit on everything. Real quick, obviously, I know we're supposed to tell all the independents, but Notre Dame is the cream of the crop. UConn is going to struggle to win 6 games this year. Like I said earlier, the turnovers are going to be a key for them. They can produce them. They'll be able to get to another bowl game. If Jim Mora can produce a 7-win season, he's going to get a Power 5 job. There's no doubt about it. Let's not forget what he did at UCLA. As much as I love Rick Neuheisel, the player and the coach he was in Colorado, it was a complete disaster when he was at UCLA. Jim Mora turned it around there. Jim Mora had success with the Falcons. Obviously, he comes from a football lineage. If he can turn around at UConn, a big payday and a big promotion will be headed his way. For Don Brown, I think that's the name, Don Brown at UMass, another tough season ahead of them. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a change. It's not really his fault. The program is not an FBS program. That's just the reality of it. But, just like certain teams from across the world of sports, they're not built to win, but expectations are lofty because of the positions they're in. And he might be a casualty of that. I think if UMass is 3 games this season, throw a ticker tape parade for them throughout the entire state, if we're being honest, but especially in Boston. Army, I have tremendous respect for that program. Obviously, these gentlemen have committed their lives to something even greater than just the game of football. They do suffer some issues because of their commitments to the Army. Right, they're not going to have those top-level offensive linemen. They're not going to have those top-level defensive linemen. They have to do things very different because of the way that they play. But I have tremendous respect and admiration for the head coach, Jeff Monken. That's the name, right? Yeah, Jeff Monken. How do you say his last name?
Yeah, Monken. So it's like Monk and then in.
Thank you. So reason why is, 1, he's a great coach. 2, he is he used to be assistant for the University of Hawaii. So obviously, I have love for him for that. And he is a great just teacher and leader of men. Army, I have around 8 wins, I think, this year. Let me take a look at the schedule real quick once again, just to make sure I'm not just speaking out my behind. So obviously, they're going to run their triple option offense. They play at ULM, Delaware State, at UTSA, at Syracuse, Boston College, Troy, at LSU, Massachusetts versus Air Force, Holy Cross, Coastal Carolina versus Navy. I'm in love with this team. I don't think they win the Commander-in-Chief trophy this year. I think that goes to the Air Force. But I do think that they beat Navy. I think they beat them handedly, despite it being such a great game. I think there's some games last year that I think that they can pull up. They finished last year at 6-6. I have them kind of around the same area between 5 and 7 wins. Obviously, the turnover margin are +4 last year in the season. If they can kind of pick it off +4, +5, +6, they can probably hit that 7-win mark. But I don't really have any of these teams going on and doing anything spectacular. And that's kind of like my major wrap up of the independents.
Got it. And yeah, we'll dig into the smaller schools. They deserve a show all to themselves. In fact, maybe 2, depending on what happens and who we. I'll reach out to Brian McLaughlin. He's really good on that stuff. Well, first of all, Brock, a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege. Good to see you again. And of course, 4th of July means something a little different to someone that was, I guess, born in a place that was a sovereign nation that was sort of stolen. But, we're all standing on stolen land, I guess. Well, on that happy note, happy 4th of July.
Obviously, we're already on time to discuss the after effects of the annexation of Hawaii. That has been, crippling the population both financially and just in general for the past century. But it is what it is. Go Bows is the best thing I can say about that. And if you ever want a history lesson about the mess of things the United States has done to the sovereign kingdom of Hawaii, open history book, but not one produced in the United States. That's the important part. And if you ever feel the urge to take a leak on William McKinley's grave, there's a good chance that might, push you to do so. But of course, I would never recommend doing that. Highly disrespectful, and nothing that we promote here on College Football Forecast.
We do not.
We do not. Make that very clear. But
we're making that very clear.
Yes. What we do promote is the engagement and enjoyment of these phenomenal athletes who have dedicated themselves to their craft. Once again, I look forward to a great season. Looking forward to more great coverage with you, Bill, and I can't wait to catch y'all next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And that is the end of this episode.